All right, today we're going to look at the firmament, and let's begin in Genesis 1. I just want to see what the Bible says. I got some good advice a long time ago when somebody told me to read the black parts of the Bible. It took me years to figure out what he meant, and then I finally realized he was saying just read the words, read what it says. Don't read between the lines. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created what? The heaven and the earth. I'm using King James. Some translate this as heavens, plural. So that's verse 1. Verse 2, then the gap theory guys put a whole different era, a whole age, a whole story, a whole epic drama in the white part. Between these two verses, they create something that exists only in their imagination. It's a great story. It's very entertaining. Would make a really good movie. And in fact, I think they do make movies about this, but it's just not there. I just don't see it. I see just a blank white space there between verse 1 and 2. Okay, so 1. 1 is the introduction. Verse 1 is like an introduction. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then the first thing he does is create heaven. And then he creates earth. Okay, so then verse 2 is, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Basically saying there was nothing there. The gap theory guys are saying God cannot create something without form and void. Well, the point is he hadn't created it yet. Verse 1 is the introduction, and then verse 2 is kind of what it was like before God created it. That's like the setting. Okay, now there was basically nothing there, just a total wasteland, and then God says, let there be light, and there is light. This is the beginning of creation. It's not coming from the sun. There was some source of, there was light without sun. So you got water and light. It started with nothing. Just like if you sit down and draw a picture, well, you sit down with a blank piece of paper first. There was the picture wasn't there, is what they're saying, And then there was a blank piece of paper. And then the little child picked up a crayon and started writing. And then there was something there. So there was no there was no destruction of a previous picture. It just wasn't there yet. These people are just making stuff up, and it's really kind of sad. The firmament. Okay, now this is the real topic of this video. God said, "Let there be a what? A firmament. Where? In the midst of the waters." So you got a bunch of water, really. You got deep, you got water. You got water and light. That's all you got so far, as far as I can see. Let there be a firmament, where? In the midst of the waters, and let it do what? Divide. Divide what? Waters from waters. So what's dividing the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament? There's only one thing. There's one thing in the middle of the waters above and the waters below. Now, what is dividing the waters above from the water below? What's in between it? Well, this one has two things in between it. It has this thing called the firmament, and then it's got this thing. They didn't even give this a label, this empty space here. Okay. Now let's look at this one. This is a common one from Logos Bible software. They got this solid, like, barrier thing. Sheet metal, bronze, glass. Who knows what they think it's made of? Nobody knows what it's made of. But it says in the Bible, the firmament divides the waters above from the waters below. But what I see between the two waters is the sky, is air, atmosphere. They got here, and this one is depicting the firmament, is this line here, this barrier. They're saying the waters above are divided by the firmament from the air below. That's what this one is depicting. If you look at it literally, exactly what it looks like. This expanse, that's what's dividing things. Not a wall, not a brick wall, or something, whatever they think it's made of. Not a solid barrier. The solid barrier, if there is one, divides water from air. And then here you got waters below, you got firmament dividing waters below from the wall above. And then you got waters. You got four things here. You got water, a wall, air, and waters below. You got 4 things, but the Bible says there's only 3 things. Let it divide the waters from the waters. So you got water above, you got firmament, you got waters below. You got 3 things. That's it. And so this word is rakia. Okay, an extended surface, expanse. Does it say wall? Does it say bronze vault? I think, so what I think is happening with this word firmament, we're just assuming, because the first 4 letters say firm, right? So our mind automatically assumes it's firm, it's solid. What does God call the firmament? Heaven. God called the firmament heaven. Genesis 1, verse 8. God created it, and he's calling it heaven. So are you saying heaven is a solid object if you think there's some kind of wall? This barrier is heaven, and that's where God lives, and that's where heaven is, and that's where the stars and moon are inside this little strip? Because that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. People are pretty attached to this solid firmament barrier between earth and heaven, but my Bible says God called the firmament heaven, and says that the firmament divides the waters above from the waters below, and nothing else. But in this photo here, you got the firmament, and then you got the sky. You got air, the atmosphere, and then you got the waters, right? This is the firmament, the air, the expanse. That's what the definition says, right? Here, it says extended surface, expanse. Firmament, the word firmament in English, in King James, is used 15 times. Now, here's the English Standard Version. I'm not saying, one is better than the other, but this one uses the word expanse. It never uses the word firmament, ever. In fact, I'll show it to you right now. There's firmament. King James uses it 15 times. ESV, firmament, search. 0 results for firmament in the English Standard Version. 0. There are 0 results. But if you put in the word expanse, which is what rakia means, you get 13 results. And it's basically the same verses that firmament is in the King James. It's easier to conceptualize with this word expanse. At least for me, when I hear that word firmament, it's not a common word. We don't use it so much these days. I think of something solid. But that's not what the word means necessarily. It says, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters. That means atmosphere. That means air. I have an expanse in my house, right? This empty space in the room. There's a room, if you go to a Dome stadium, I'm going to the game this weekend. It's at the Dome. That doesn't mean you're going to sit on top of the roof. That's where you're going. You're going inside, in the expanse. There's a huge expanse inside the dome, So let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters. The expanse separates the waters from the waters, the air, the atmosphere. God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under from the waters that were above. God called the expanse heaven. Remember, in the beginning, the introduction tells us God created the heavens and the earth. And God creates the heavens. God called the firmament heaven. God called the expanse heaven. The firmament equals heaven. Okay, so when you see this word firmament, we're going to think of expanse. God said, let there be lights where? In the expanse of the heaven. And there's a purpose for the lights. Signs, seasons, days, and years, calendars, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then he made the stars also. So the stars are different than these 2 lights. The sun is a light, the moon is a lesser light, shines its own light. The moon has its own light. It's self-illuminating by some kind of luminescence. I don't know what the moon is, but it's not reflecting the light of the sun. I know that. You can observe that with your own eyes. And he made the stars also. So right here, my interpretation of this, or my understanding, is that stars are different than the sun. The scientists tell us that there's like 1 billion, trillion suns out there. Stars and suns are the same thing. Here, it's quite obvious the sun is different, and the moon are 2 different lights for 2 different purposes, and they're different than the stars. And it doesn't really say where the stars are, actually, so be careful about that. But it says clearly, these lights, the sun and the moon, are in the firmament. Okay, so how can they be inside of some kind of wall, some kind of solid wall? How would that work? God, because right here it says, God set them where? In the firmament of the heaven. Why? To give light upon the earth. He made the stars also. It says somewhere else in the Bible, stars are angels. So these are angels, the host of heaven. And here, look at this. The fowl that fly above the earth, the dry land, they fly above the dry land in where? In the open firmament of heaven. Remember, the firmament is heaven. The open expanse of heaven. The birds fly in heaven. The sun and moon are set in the firmament of heaven, the expanse of heaven. So you got the sun, you got the moon, and the birds all in the same place, in the firmament of heaven. Birds fly in the firmament of heaven. Verse 20. The sun and the moon in the firmament of heaven. Verse 17. So here you got fowl of the air, you got air, and then we've already said they in the firmament. So the firmament was heaven, was air, because that's where the birds are. And that's also where the sun and the moon are. They're in the air. How can birds fly in this wall? Explain that one to me, please, because I'm confused. This one makes sense. I would title this the firmament of heaven. Now it gets confusing because they do seem to talk about the atmosphere as heaven, and they also talk about the place, where God lives as heaven. So that's where it gets confusing. There seems to be more than one heaven, and they're different. I think that's where a lot of this confusion comes from. So we'll have to dig into that more. But right now, the firmament of heaven divides the waters above from the waters below, as you can see clearly in this photo. We don't need this wall here. So it's kind of like an air bubble. Is there a wall around this air bubble? There's some kind of barrier, right? What do we call that? We don't even have a word for that, really, right? There's the air inside. What do you call the surface of an air bubble? There's air inside and there's water around it. There is obviously some kind of barrier, right? Some kind of end. There's an edge where the air stops and the water begins, but there's no wall. You don't have to build a wall around an air bubble. The air inside is different than the water. That's why they don't mingle together. So that what I'm saying, my simple image is that we live in an air bubble, a very strong one. This bubble ain't gonna pop until God wants it to. We're living in an air bubble. Look at this: the water's above, water's below, separated by what? The firmament, the expanse, the air, the space, the empty space, not outer space, but the empty space between. Then you got these, NASA kind of guys. People who have friends who work at NASA say that rakia means expanse of outer space, But that's, how could the birds, so you're saying the birds live in outer space? Is that what you're saying? Because the birds fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And the rakia, remember that word is rakia, expanse of heaven. Birds don't fly in outer space. There is no outer space. Birds fly in the atmosphere. So remember, sun, moon, and stars. Verse 17. In the firmament of heaven. Birds in the firmament of heaven. Same place. Flat earth. Okay, we just proved the flat earth according to the Bible. Right there. And we've also proved there's no gap theory. All right. So anytime you see this word firmament, I like the word expanse. Right. Expanse. It just means expand. It's a bit of a vague word. It's a difficult word. Rakia, right here, 7549. And you can see a lot of versions use the word expanse. Some use firmament, but the word, what does the word firmament mean? We just don't even use that word. Okay, now, then the next verse, people say who want to hold on to this wall theory, the firmament is a wall. They go to this verse. What is this? Job 37, verse 18. Hast thou with him spread out the sky? Now we got the word sky, which is strong. So the sky is strong. Okay, fine. Yeah, the sky is strong. And as comparing, not saying it is a molten looking glass, it's like it's similar to. They're comparing it as a molten looking glass. So, and they use this to say that the firmament is a solid object. We've just clearly shown Genesis 1 says God called the firmament heaven. So how can that be? Is heaven a solid barrier between the two waters? Is that what you're saying heaven is? This one does not say firmament. It does not say rakia. It says sky. It's a different word. They're talking about something different. Now, yeah, you could say, well, the sky and the air and all this is the same thing. Maybe it's not, Maybe the sky means who knows what they're thinking of. It's a slightly different concept, I believe. It doesn't say expanse. There's only 6 times the word sky, and then plural form shows up another 5 times. So let's look at Job 37:18 in the interlinear, in the Hebrew, basically, which I don't know Hebrew, but this is all I got. As a molten looking glass, which is strong. So they're saying the molten looking glass is strong. Not the sky, really. The sky have you with spread out as a strong molten looking glass, or a mirror, I guess. So this word hazakim, strong, hard. One time it says hard, strong. But in the 2389, chazak, I guess it's a related word. It looks the same. At least there's another letter before these 3 letters here, but all these say mighty, somewhere at least. Strong, under compulsion, strong, powerful, loud, mighty, strong, fiercest, hottest, mighty, severe. So it could mean mighty, right? The mighty sky. The sky is mighty. It doesn't say hard, really. It doesn't say hard, but it's just a strong sky. Just like, look at this air bubble. Maybe you could say the walls of the air bubble are strong, but it doesn't mean it's like a separate wall was built around this air bubble. They don't need walls. It's already part of the deal. It's just when the air ends, then you got water. And that is strong. That's very strong, right? It's strong. It's mighty. This is an expanse, and maybe this surface isn't part of the expanse. There is a surface, right? But it's not made of bronze or anything like that. So Job 37:18, for me, is not a proof text. First of all, it's not using the word rakia. It's using the word sky. And it's not, and this word strong could also mean mighty, and it just means strong anyway. It doesn't mean hard, solid barrier. It's just strong, A lot of things are strong. You could have a strong wind. In fact, I think the Bible uses that phrase somewhere. Strong wind. Does that mean the wind is a solid object? You could say the expanse is mighty. It's a mighty expanse in the sky. Did you create the mighty expanse in the sky? Maybe that. Look at Job right here. Job 38:18. The next chapter in Job says, "Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth?" The expanse. Now that's talking about just the breadth. The breadth, the width, the size of the earth. It's kind of a conceptual noun, right? It's just like the whole largeness of the earth, just the whole epic scale. So there's no proof of a solid barrier between the air and the heavens, because the Bible does not say that. It just doesn't say it. So this almost looks like a bubble, doesn't it? This one here. This is Rob Skiba made this. Cool. Thanks, man. So what if it is this bubble, And yeah, there is an edge to the bubble, edge to the air, and then the beginning of the waters and stuff. Okay? So it's just a bubble. There doesn't have to be some bronze. And from a structural engineering standpoint, it's just very risky, You got this, bronze dome above us and keeping everything out. And what if it breaks, in an earthquake? You got the foundations of the earth. You got springs. How is this dome going to stay intact? You got people nuking it in 1957. You got all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But if you had air would support itself. and it would be strong, it would be mighty. You got the sun, the moon, and the birds inside this place, okay? You got God up here in heaven, God's heaven, or God's throne. And then you got the stars wherever they are. The stars are, I guess the stars are in heaven, right? The other, God's heaven, the heavenly realms, the angelic realms. Some people say there's 3 heavens. I guess some people say there's 7 heavens. I don't know, But I'm thinking, for now, I'm thinking they call this heaven, this expanse. The firmament was called heaven. So they call this atmosphere is also called heaven, the air, the place we live, the atmosphere where airplanes fly and birds fly, and the sun and the moon are. That's called heaven. Then you got God's heaven, God's expanse. Maybe God's expanse is also called heaven, right? If the firmament is called heaven, the expanse is called heaven. Heaven is an expanse. We have an earthly expanse, a space. Just like in my house, I have an expanse. I have rooms with a bunch of empty space in between the walls. You got the space in here in this atmosphere, and then you got space out here in heaven. You got space. You got the space where things live. I'm not talking about George Lucas, Star Wars, outer space. I'm talking about heavenly, the room of heaven, the throne, the place where things happen in heaven. Expanse. There's an expanse of earth and an expanse of heaven. God called the firmament heaven. So this verse 1 could really say God created the firmament, the expanse, and the earth, because that's all they're talking about. It doesn't say God created his throne where he lives. He's already living there. God created the atmosphere, the expanse. In the beginning, God created the expanse, the atmosphere, and the dry land. Water seems to have been there. Separated the waters, dry land appeared. So I'm saying we live in an air bubble. There's no solid barrier. It's just the edge of the atmosphere, the edge of the air, the edge of this earthly realm, and then the beginning of the heavenly realm above, the angelic realm. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished. Now this should really just be singular, I think. It's kind of strange. It's heavens, actually. So that's why that's a complicated topic. But right now I'm thinking, so it created the heavens and the earth, and now they're finished, okay? There's no pre-Adamic race, there's no gap theory, and all the hosts, the stars as well. And then they got the Sabbath, right? So I don't know why they start chapter 2 with the end of the story of chapter 1, because that gets confusing. And here, verse 4, Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, so you got Genesis 1, create the story of the creation of the firmament, heaven, the expanse, and earth. Now we're going to talk about the generations of the heavens and of the earth. The generations, the people. We're going to talk about the people of the earth when God created the earth and the heaven. In the day, it says specifically, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and heavens. Now we're going to talk about the people, the same exact people that God made in chapter 1. Okay, and then you got Adam and Eve coming, right? And day 6 was Adam and Eve. It wasn't a whole other race of people. Where's day 6? Right here. God said, let us make man in our image. That's Adam. And he's talking about the generations of Adam. He's talking about, all the people are going to be like this. Male and female, he created them. That's Adam and Eve. This is not a whole other race of people. Because in chapter 2, it says we're going to talk about the 2 people that God created the same day God made the earth and heavens that we just talked about in chapter 1. All right. And some people say, well, the rest of creation's in a different order. It's not. If you look carefully, it's not. You got to look very closely at the wordings. Okay. Genesis 1, God created the heaven, the firmament, the air, dividing the waters above from the waters below. And it's air. Firmament is air, the atmosphere. We live in an air bubble. Then God created the earth. And then God created people on day 6, Adam and Eve. And then goes on to talk about their story and their generations from chapter 2, verse 4, and the rest of the Bible. And so God created the heaven and the earth in the beginning, and at the end they flee away. Earth and heaven, the rakia, the expanse, the air. and there was found no place for them. So the world kind of gets uncreated again, I guess. Some say heaven, some say sky. See how it gets confusing? Heaven, sky, rakia, expanse, firmament. They're all kind of talking about the same thing. And so the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and at the end, God destroys the heaven and the earth, the expanse, the air. Here it is. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth, which ones? The first heaven is the first firmament, the first expanse, the first rakia. And the first earth were passed away. Those two things he created in chapter 1 are now passed away. That's what these are, exactly. And there is no more sea. Remember, chapter 1, he created heaven, firmament of heaven. The firmament was heaven. He called the firmament heaven. Created the atmosphere, the air, because it's very important for us, right? We need the air to live. We need this living space. The first atmosphere, the first air bubble that we exist on. Without it, we couldn't exist on our flat earth. The earth is still flat, folks. Don't worry. It always has been. Will be until this. Maybe the next earth will be flat too. I don't know. I guess so. The first heaven and the first earth were passed away. There was no more sea. It's all going away. And then the tabernacle of God comes down. No more death, no more pain, no more sorrow. All former things have passed away. Totally new age, man. Totally new age. Incredible. It's amazing. So have hope there. We're totally deceived in this world. The next world is just going to be amazing. So let's conclude Revelation 20. The dragon. The dragons are dragons. Dragons are not dinosaurs. The devil is not a dinosaur. Dragons are a unique thing. So maybe dinosaurs lived in the pre-flood, right? So the whole dinosaur deception is about dinosaurs died in the flood. They're covering up the flood. The scientists don't want it. The Freemason scientists, Illuminati, satanic people, don't want us to believe in the flood, because that would mean we believe in the Bible. They don't want us to believe in dragons, So maybe there were dinosaurs, but they were a pre-flood kind of animal that died off in the flood, probably. I don't know why they didn't go on Noah's Ark. I don't know. So they put the dragon, the serpent, the devil, Satan, seal him up. Why? So that he cannot deceive us anymore. Then he comes out after 1,000 years for a little bit, and then he's gone, man. He's thrown to the lake of fire. Amazing. It's an amazing story. Shall not deceive the nations no more. That means he is deceiving us now. We're totally deceived, people. Wake up from deception. And this firmament thing, it's causing a lot of division in the flat earth community and the Christian community. And there's people use this to discredit the flat earth movement. But I'm saying, hey, forget this solid dome firmament deal. We don't need it to believe in a flat earth, The rakia is our atmosphere. It's not the entire of George Lucas, Star Wars, Star Trek, outer space. That exists only in movies, okay? Because the sun, the moon, and the birds are in the firmament. And the word heaven is used for our atmosphere a lot. I think it's also used for what's above our atmosphere, but that's another story. So thanks. Hope you enjoyed it. And, I'm sure you'll disagree with me. But that's fine. It's my own opinion. Maybe I'm wrong in a few points. I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm just a guy with a Bible and a microphone. Have a great day. Thanks.